told me many times before. In fact, in reading her old Bible, it is written in there in the beginning, where she takes this quote, and she has said this repeatedly to Willis and Maurice and myself. It's a mean world out there. And you're going to run into all kinds of people. Mama used to tell us that every smile will not be sincere. Every welcome will not be from the heart. Everyone around you will not always be for you. But she said, learn to hear God's voice and learn to discern God's presence. Pray and wait on the Lord. Every time I think about the role of my mother, Clara Bedford, in my life, I sat here this morning just wondering, where would I be if it had not been for God placing her in my life? I often smile when I think of her sense of humor. My father was a pastor of Second Baptist Church in Elgin, and yes, he was the spiritual leader of the church. And yes, he was active in civil rights during the 60s and 70s. So Daddy was the doer. He was the preacher, the teacher, the planner, the organizer. But Mom was the observer. In other words, Mom used to say, boy, I can read them like a book. And I used to say, Mom, what do you mean when you say you can read people? And she said, just sit a while and observe folk and pay attention, and you will see what is on the inside and the outside. And I learned from Mom how to observe human behavior. And she married the observation of human behavior with her spiritual journey. So I learned from Mom not only to be a doer, but to observe. And she used to say things like, boy, stay calm. Stay focused. Don't get into every fight. Don't feel like you have to die on every cross. Some of these sayings, she used to say, everything that glitters is not gold. Everything, every shut eye is not sleep. These strange sayings I used to hear from a child. In fact, she used to tell me, boy, if I tell you that a hen dips snuff, you better check his wing. I never understood these crazy, bizarre sayings. She used to say, expand your mind, boy, and expand how you see things in the world.
Tell it.
Mama did what she could.
Yes, sir.
Sadly, moms, that some of you here today have never been correctly and rightly honored for all of the sacrifices that you make. Some of you here today, you've had to go to bed hungry so that your children could eat. Some of you had to recycle your dresses so that the kids could have the latest way. Some of you had to work 2 jobs so that you can make ends meet. Some of you were both mom and dad. Even if you're married, you had to be mom and dad. I tell my own kids, the military had me gone for months at a time. And Mom, Letty, had to be both mom and dad. In other words, she had to cook for them and then turn around and say, boy, if you cross me, just like I brought you in the world, I'll take you out of the world. Maybe you had a mama like that. And some of you have never received your rightful due.
That's it.
And so today I want to pause and say, we honor you.
Yes, we do. Yes.
And we thank God for you. It is interesting and your children may not even understand your sacrifice. Sometimes I used to see my mother drive that beat-up 1974 Buick Regal that was rusting out. And I was ashamed when she would pull it up in front of Thornridge High School. There it was, blowing blue smoke out back. And I would say, Mom, just let me out over here by the gym. And she said, no, no, your class is going over there. No, no, Mama, you don't understand. I'm trying to be cool. Pressed girl, I can't be getting out of no 1974 Buick Regal with rust. But I did not understand that because she drove the Rustmobile, that allowed us to go to the doctor when we got sick. That because she drove the Rustmobile, we could go down to the blue light special at Kmart and get some things. That because she drove the Rustmobile, I could get some candy at Woolworth 5 and dime store. And because she made the sacrifice, I was able to have some things that Mama herself. In other words, just like the woman in our scripture, and I'm going to come back to her, she did what she could. And mothers, if no one else tells you today, and I'm thankful, we're thankful for what you have done. Now, mothers, I also understand that in this modern contemporary society, that you're often kind of misunderstood. Because we live in a culture now where we got to listen to Dr. Phil and Dr. Laura and Dr. Oz and everybody else, and we believe that these folk can help you raise your children. And so we have been convinced that in this new model, in this new day, that maybe the old school rules don't apply. And so some of us look at you a little crazy now. I was telling a friend of mine, I said, by today's rules, Clara Bedford would be in jail. And I said, just when she thought she was getting ready to get out of jail, they put her back in. Because you are often misunderstood. But I'm glad that just the other week on CNN, I got a chance to see an old school mom. I had a chance to see an old school mom. Her boy had a hood on his face, and he was there in Baltimore, and he was going to throw some rocks. And I know that her method was not a Dr. Phil recommended. See, she didn't pull up a chair and say, let me weigh the pros and cons of the implications of what's going to happen to you if you keep throwing rocks. No. If you watch the same TV that girlfriend left the beauty shop, she said, hold on, baby. That looked like my boy. And I got there, she knew her nails were done now. But she said, that boy looked like mine. So she came down there and she had a sunshine yellow on. She with all that in a bag of chips and then she didn't pull up no chair. In fact, he better be glad there I told Letty that wasn't walking me down memory lane. Mom been dead 20-some years. I went and cleaned up my room. Old school. Old school. See, the great problem that I had when I watched that on CNN, and we make fun of those mamas. And I guarantee you, she kept that boy that day out of jail. I guarantee you, she made sure that that boy was not in the back of some paddy wagon where he could be subject to brutality. Now you know. Where were all the other mothers? Was she the only one that could recognize her child with a hoodie on? Was she the only one? Or was it something within her that said, I may not have a PhD, I may not have a white-collar job, but one thing that I'm going to do, I'm going to give my best to raising my children. I may not know what daddy is, but I'm going to do my best to make sure that you're not in jail. Hey! It reminds me of this woman in Scripture when Jesus said she did what she could. Did what she could. I'm going to walk down memory lane. I just got a few more minutes. I was acting up at school, Coolidge, middle school there in Phoenix, Illinois. I was trying to fit in. Mrs. Guy wanted me to sit down and do my work. I'm trying to fit in. We didn't have the Crips and the Bloods, but I was trying to fit in. And fitting in wasn't, and trying to be smart was not on the agenda that day. What I didn't realize is that Mrs. Guy knew Claire Bedford as a great miscalculation on my part. Huge. Did I tell you that was wrong thinking? And so when she stepped out classroom, we were really cutting up. The next thing I know, in those days, ladies, you can appreciate this. Mama showed up, and she was wearing what they used to call a duster. My friend, he said, man, your mama out there, and she wearing a duster. Their mama was doing, she got the call. And Coolidge, if you're familiar with Phoenix, is only 8 blocks from where I live. And mama shows up with a duster. But that's not it. She also shows up with them big old curls. And pulls me out. And reminds me, don't you ever have the scoop to call me about you acting up in this class. No, that's not Dr. Phil. That's not Dr. Spark. None of that stuff. But she did what she could. And because she did what she could, made a difference. One more illustration. I'm done. You can Google this if you want. A few years ago, CNN carried a story about parenting. And in their story, they asked the question, when old rules of discipline no longer apply. And they asked noted psychologists, clinical social workers, they were trying to help this young inner city mother with what they perceived were some bad parenting skills.
All right.
And so they asked her why she did some of the things that she did. The first thing that they really thought was a problem is that the young mother said that I make my children go to church on Sunday. We're just going to be old school for a minute. Y'all work with me. And they asked her, they said, well, you are ruining their ability for self-expression. And you are crippling their creativity. You can Google this when you get home. And so they asked her, why do you make your children go to church? Now, I like the way she answered it. She didn't have no PhD from Harvard.
Come on.
But she also said, not only do I make them go to church, she said, on Monday, I make them go to school. I make them go to school. And then she said, not only do I make them go to school, she said, when they come home, I make them cut the TV on. And I make them put the cell phone up. And I make them read. And I make them study because I want them to be somebody. Then she went on and she said, but not only that, I make them clean their room. And I make them do household chores. And I make them do some things. And the one psychologist said, I'm just worried about that word, make them. That just disturbs me that we use in this modern day context that word, that I make them. And I liked how she answered this. She said, because I've come to realize, I've lived in the inner city long enough that if I don't make them, that is a man with a black robe, and there's another one that carries a weapon on his side, that he'll make them. I'm almost done. That there is some things in life that will make them. And so as mama, I want to make them. In other words, she was saying, I'm doing all that I can do. Then let me close.
Come on.
Let's go back to this passage.
Yes.
Where it says, Jesus says, that she did all she could do.
Yes, sir.
And mothers, some of you right now, you're doing all that you can do. Life has not been fair. Some of you have raised children. You've tried to keep them out of trouble. But they've been intent that they're going to find trouble. You've done all that you could do. Some of you have not had much resources, and what little you have, you've done all that you can do. You've instilled faith in your children. You've instilled hope. You've tried to make a woman out of a girl, and a man out of a boy. You've done all that you can do. Then what I like about this passage is that when the woman did all that she can do, the Bible says Jesus stepped in. Bible says they were debating as to why she poured oil on Jesus. They were talking to her harshly. They were criticizing her good intentions. They were downgrading what she did. And the 6th verse, Jesus steps in. And Jesus said, leave her alone. Somebody here today, you know what it's like that when you've done the best that you can do, and you got on your knees, and you said, Lord, come see about me. You prayed for that child, and you asked that he put food on the table, and you asked that he make a way out of nowhere. And I think I've got a few witnesses here today. Where you say, Reverend, I've seen the Lord stop by my house, and I've seen him say, devil, leave her alone. you didn't have any money. You seen him keep your family together. You know him to be a waymaker. So he says, leave her alone. My mama used to tell me, boy, when you've done the best that you can do,
come on.
Sometimes you need to turn it over to Jesus and watch Jesus work it out. Our children, some of you need to just say, Mama, thank you for doing all that you could do. Mama may not have a PhD, may never have made more than minimum wage, may not have traveled outside of the state of Illinois. Yes, you may have been raised in the hood. And yeah, Mama may not speak good English. But I've got to go to my seat and say, Mama, thank you for doing what you could. Thank you for keeping me out of jail. Thank you for making sure I got an education. Thank you that I know right from wrong. Thank you for letting me be the man that I am. You did all you could. And then when you couldn't do no more, you said, Father, I stretch my hand to thee. Have no other. If thou withdraw thyself from me, where shall I go? Yeah. Mama, you here today?
Yes, sir.
Maybe you've never been appreciated. I want to pause and say to you right now,
Come on.
thank you for doing all that you can do.
Yes, sir.
Now, you ain't got no money to buy the children no iPad. You don't have any money for a big screen TV. No, you couldn't give them the latest of fashion.
Yes, sir.
But you've done all you could do. You've given the best. Then when you couldn't do anymore. Like this woman in this text. You said, Lord, I need you now. Fight my battle. How do you know that when Jesus steps up to the plate, he'll tell your enemies, leave her alone.
Yes.
Leave her alone. She's gone. Just this week, I'll be at a graduation in Tennessee. I was talking to the mother about her daughter who will graduate from Union University there in Jackson, Tennessee. She said, Pastor, it's been nothing but the Lord. She said, I'm a waitress at the Cracker Barrel. On the weekends, I have to go and clean houses. Daddy was never in her life. She said all I could do many nights, call on the Lord. She herself never finished high school. Grew up in a very dysfunctional family herself. But she said I wanted to give my daughter better life. Some days she looked at me a little crazy. I wouldn't let her run who she wanted to run with. I wouldn't let her do some of the things that she wanted to do. We were having this discussion while the daughter was right there. And I know about Union University because that's why I finished school. And I know that it is one of the expensive schools in West Tennessee. And she said every time we thought we wasn't going to make tuition, the Lord made a way. He said, Pastor, one Christmas in the Cracker Barrel, I had a customer to give me a $400 tip on a $50 meal. I didn't know him. I never shared my story. But she said, that lets me know that the Lord will go back.